Hello, welcome to the Beliefs Bazaar. My name is Alex, and in this video, I'd like to talk about my credentials, which are essentially none. I do not have a college degree or any other kind of accredited, certification or what have you. And I realize that many people on the internet will find that appealing because there's this whole kind of idea that's being pushed really hard right now that people that are, educated, have gone to universities or part of some, what people are just referring to generally as institutions in a somewhat negative context, as if that means that they're somehow, shills or something. And so, like I said, I don't have personally much qualifications credential-wise, or, I haven't attended, universities in any meaningful way. I've taken the odd class here and there, but not any degree program. So, instead of talking shit about, professors and educators and science communicators and what have you, I'm going to explain why I think we should look towards expert opinion. And I find it really strange that we're not doing that all the time, or why this new trend of, somehow casting doubt on experts as if they're trying to trick us into something. There's a couple ways we can easily kind of approach these things without, having to quantify whether or not someone is, telling the truth or not. It's not necessarily a prestige or position or certification or any of that qualifies people as experts. It's the content of the knowledge they have that qualifies them for experts. And certainly, schools and whatnot, give you, a certificate of completion, essentially a degree, a piece of paper saying that you have acquired, a set of knowledge in whatever field. And so what was so odd to me is why people have taken to the idea that experts aren't to be trusted or what have you. And I think part of that problem is that for most people, including myself, because I'm not particularly educated in any one field, although I've read a couple books, which again doesn't qualify me for anything really. But what I don't understand is why. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's like people don't want to be wrong, or they feel like if they are not correct all the time, that is somehow weakness or something. And I'll get into that in a moment. But I first just wanted to say that, typically everyone out there, and not just the people that criticize educators or educated people, but everyone out there has had to at one time seek out someone, whether it was their parents or someone else, who knew more than they did about a thing and could help them learn the thing. So, riding a bike or writing or learning to read, these are things that, are skill sets that people learn and didn't know how to do previous to learning. So I don't understand why we cannot apply that same context to everything. And for whatever reason, I don't know if it's just because people feel like dumb, or you don't want to feel stupid or something because someone is like correcting you or whatever. I don't think that that's a good enough reason to condemn the whole scientific knowledge, the whole accumulated human knowledge. I don't think that because it makes me feel stupid that I don't know something. I do not think that that's even close to enough reason to just broadly refuse to recognize expertise. Now, yeah, what even is, I'm sorry, I'm getting lost for words because it really is confusing to me. And I'll tell you from my personal experience, especially in recent years, I was definitely a type person until my mid 30s even that was, felt pretty bad if I didn't I always wanted to be like the smartest person in the room. And for a while I thought that I was, because I surrounded myself with a bunch of idiots, maybe for ego or something, because it made me feel better to at least like seem like I was the smartest one in the room. But I eventually learned, because, there's a lot of like ideas about weakness or humiliation tied with the idea of being wrong. And I want to present a different argument for that. I actually think that having a willingness to correct yourself and increase your knowledge and decrease your, incorrect ideas, that is actually strength, because you are, I'll put it this way. When I'm looking into something, I try to take what I think about a thing already and then prove that wrong. And I look for evidence against what I think already, because only by that method can you refine your ideas into a point or to a place where you have a correct idea, because you've already taken the time to discard all of your erroneous thinking. And I realize that is hard for a lot of people to get into that mindset. But once you do, you'll find that, number one, you'll probably feel like I did, and that you're really dumb, and that you are now where you thought you were up here, relative to the rest of humanity. You're actually kind of lower at the bottom of the pile, and you need to educate yourself or be educated through some curriculum-based education program. And so it actually, I don't know how to explain that any better, or just say that for me, it was an attitude change from, I want to be the smartest person in the room, and I feel dumb or embarrassed or humiliated if anyone else proves themselves to be smarter than me on any topic. That is a perpetual state of feeling incompetent, and then overcorrecting with your, narcissistic behavior to validate your own beliefs about yourself. But I feel that now, in this new mindset where, previously I was like, I am for sure right about everything I believe, to I'm pretty sure I'm right about everything I believe, but I'm willing to change my beliefs if I'm presented with new information that either contradicts my previous understanding of a thing. I'll then interrogate the contradiction and then refine my belief, or just being open to the possibility that you're wrong altogether. And when you consider that discarding bad ideas and learning more about yourself and humanity and all the things that you're interested in, that actually makes you stronger, because you're more able to understand when people, I guess this is what I'm getting at, people will manipulate you and can more easily manipulate you if you're stuck on some ideas that you refuse to discard despite being confronted with evidence. That's kind of it. That's the bottom line. This whole anti-intellectual movement, I guess, to me, it just seems like, I don't know if it's, I don't know what's all behind it, because there's many different things, it seems like, but there's a lot of people that just want to be famous or whatever. And I realize that if you're trying to be famous for some kind of scientific discovery, that's getting harder and harder to do, because we've discovered so much that to come up with anything novel, you have to learn a lot and do experiments and test theories and all this kind of stuff. And so that's not very easily approachable by me or anyone else. There's lots of stuff that I wish I could do, but I just don't have access to the academic, research personnel, I guess, so there's the frustration of, I understand the frustration of what seems like a very gate kept thing, which is higher knowledge or education, or even just academia in general, or science, applied science, right? So once you've educated, however, in school usually, and then you move into your field and actually work the career, that is not easy to do. That's difficult. You have to go through school. It takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of patience with yourself, and it takes you have to be humble enough to admit when you're wrong and correct yourself on information. So I guess, I want to wrap this up quickly. I didn't want to make this a very long video, but I guess the thing is that I wanted to say about why, even though I have no credentials, and most of the people that'll end up watching this probably don't either, we can still interrogate knowledge as long as we are willing to be wrong about the things that we've already learned, or the things we already think, or, the ideas we have about a thing before we actually look into it. If you have this mindset of like, well, anything that disagrees with me must be a conspiracy, or someone trying to trick me into what have you, that's going to be a very scary and lonely place to be. I encourage everyone to just, I know it's not a like immediate thing, but it almost kind of is, because you can just decide that you don't think that discarding bad ideas is a sign of weakness, but actually courage, because you're willing to say, hey, I was wrong about this. Maybe I've been an asshole to one of my family members about this because I was on some bullshit and they were right. And that's embarrassing. That's potentially humiliating, whether or not you're actually, whether or not you just perceive it as humiliating, or whether, everyone else would also agree that it's humiliating. Humiliation happens. It's something that we can use to grow and maybe learn from, instead of, saying that anything that challenges me whatsoever must be an attack on me personally, because I have associated my identity with these ideas, such that without these ideas, who am I, So that's the other thing, I guess. Be careful to just, remain, keep that door just tiny bit cracked, so that if you are presented with something that is, revelatory, or it is an additional piece of information that allows, that invokes a correction, that doesn't devastate you, because it used to devastate me. And so I understand that position. I understand that feeling. And I'm not saying that it's a good feeling. I'm just saying that we can decide that it's not a bad feeling, or at least it's not humiliating. It's actually courageous, and it shows strength to approach a topic and be like, hey, I was actually not as informed as I thought I was, and here's now this new information that I have, so I can have a stronger opinion about it, and a stronger argument, and a stronger position. So yeah, I guess that's all I really had to say in this video. My whole content is about beliefs and how beliefs affect, the world we live in and our interaction with it. And, yeah, that's kind of it. The couple of things I wanted to leave with was that, the thing, I understand knowledge, there's so much knowledge out there. We can't know everything, right? We can't always fact check ourselves, but we can employ critical thinking, which is the ability to analyze information objectively, identify biases, and draw logical conclusions, ultimately leading to a better decision-making and problem-solving. It involves questioning assumptions, evaluating evidence, and considering different perspectives. And when learning critical thinking, the most important part of that, here I'll bring it back up, the most important part of that is the ability to identify biases and draw logical conclusions and so on. But ultimately, the identifying biases is to say that, whatever beliefs I have, I recognize that those beliefs might change how I perceive information. Therefore, I need to decide what that belief will make me think about things in general, and try to set that aside as best I can. And so I understand that, in practice, critical thinking essentially means that you need to entertain the idea that none of your beliefs are real, right? You need to approach something with, as much objectivity as we can, which is to say that, as long as we're cognizant of how we might be be tainting information or filtering it, I guess, through our ideas and beliefs. As long as we can recognize and acknowledge that, even deep down to like the belief about whether or not I was wrong or right about a thing, or whether or not I think I'm good or bad, all of these things need to be set aside when considering anything that's presented to us. And I won't really use many examples in here because I don't want to single anyone out, but just understanding your own ideas or beliefs is crucial. And also how the beliefs in relation to other people's beliefs and what have you is essential to critical thinking. And if you're not doing that, you're not critically thinking. So therefore, I don't think that anyone who's not employing critical thinking will arrive at any truth, because you're only seeking out the truth that validates your preconceived beliefs. And the last thing I'll leave with is, just because you can't understand something or won't take the time to understand something, it doesn't make it a conspiracy or God. And now that is not to say that no conspiracies exist, because of course they do. It's just not necessarily a conspiracy to trick you if there's something you don't understand, and I'll use the example of flat earth because that's low-hanging fruit. If you don't understand how to use the stars and the sun and the moon to confirm that the earth is a globe, or if you don't understand orbital mechanics such that you can track the orbits of the planets and the moon and all that, that's okay. You don't need to understand those things. But you need to understand that they are things, rather than just dismissing the entirety of our humanity's established knowledge just because it makes you feel dumb or whatever it is. I don't know. I don't know what that is about. But that's just what I think about things. I'm not that qualified in any field. Like I said, I don't have any degrees, but I do know that through certain methodologies, we can approach things and arrive at truths, and discard bad ideas. And that does not require a college degree to do. It only requires that you employ critical thinking. So thank you for watching. Have a good day or night.